Hey everybody, Way 3D's meteorologist Brian Good here. Alright, special edition here of Snow Talk. You won't see this title, we'll hear about this again until we get closer to the season, alright? So, I know the snow lovers are excited to hear at least an update of what's potentially coming our way for this upcoming winter. The snow haters are really aggravated with me today. But be nice, guys. Keep it civil here, alright? It's just weather we're talking about. Snow lovers love to hear about this kind of stuff. So, this is feeding my snow fans here more than anything, and then hopefully it'll cool off everybody if you get a chance to just listen to what the outlook is. Now, keep in mind, this is not an official forecast that I'm giving. All I'm going to do is let you know some of the early trends. We were noticing some similar patterns the past two springs that helped us gain an idea of how the winter would look, and we were monitoring that as we were putting together our winter forecast in October. What we've been doing so far this spring, the same thing, monitoring some trends, and I have noticed some data coming in that is worth discussing, so I decided to go ahead and let's discuss it. Let me throw it out there for those of you that are wondering. This is your place to always expect more right now when it comes to weather, and we try to give you as much transparency as we can when it comes to our forecast thoughts. And being a snow lover, I'm always analyzing data. Not only in the next hour, but for the next year. I'm always looking at stuff. I just can't stop. It's a problem I have. Anyway, so here's how things are looking, having said all of that. So here we go. First off, the snow season, which, by the way, is still officially ongoing until July 1st. That is when all these numbers you see here reset back to zero. So as of this point, we're still adding on to it, but obviously as far as the clock goes to this total, but we're not adding on to the amount because snow season technically is over. 27.6 is what we did pick up. We normally get about 1.5 feet here in Louisville. You compare that to normal, we ended up with about 15 inches above normal this past winter, and we were above, of course, last year. One of the things I'm looking at, the ocean, there's several things to look at when it comes to a winter forecast. There's anything from the El Nino, La Nina impacts, the ocean temperatures, of course, being part of that, sunspots, volcanic eruptions. There's a lot that goes into winter forecasting. And really, to be honest with you, it's such an imperfect science. We really don't know which one is really the trigger, which one is the dominant factor in determining how the winter will play out. But I will say one that is leading the way more than the others, especially lately, has been the ocean. The ocean is a tremendous amount of heat energy where it is warmer than normal especially. And I'm talking about both hemispheres, north and south, have a huge impact on how things go globally. And we're identifying some patterns, and we're trying to still learn from this because we still don't have the answers here. But having said that, here's the forecast from the Japanese Weather Office. And this is the one I was monitoring last year. Here are the ocean temperatures. Last year, this time, it was forecast warmer than normal waters over the Pacific Ocean, hugging anywhere from Alaska all the way down to Mexico. Colder than normal, though, in the central Pacific, and colder than normal across the Northeast, and fairly cool along the southeast coast, in fact. The forecast for this winter, from the same time period, the Japanese model is very similar, forecasting above normal along the coast, colder than normal, if not a little more dramatic with that idea in the central Pacific, colder than normal off the Northeast, and one more off the Bahamas there. I mean, they look almost identical when it comes to ocean temperatures, if not a little more dramatic with the intensity of the outlooks for both of these features. That is important to know. Now, taking that idea, let's look at surface temperatures, what we feel, obviously. Last year, it was forecasting way below normal temperatures across a good chunk of the United States, warmer than normal for Alaska. That ended up being exactly on cue. And this year, it is forecasting colder than normal for Alaska, and generally cooler than normal, if not a little pocket of warmer than normal, right over Kentucky. So that is interesting to see that, considering how dominant it was with the ocean temperatures for this year compared to last year, yet the result is not exactly the same. And I think I know why. I'll get out in here in just a second. When you look at precipitation, it was forecasting the potential for a very wet southeast, somewhat wet California, dry northwest. Well, that didn't exactly pan out too well. I mean, it was kind of marginal here for the above, but overall the west was dry. The southeast had some dry periods as well. We had a dry period in December and January before we really caught in on some of that snowfall. This year it is forecast to have above normal across the Great Lakes and a far southeast, and still way above normal in the California coast. This has a very strong El Nino look to that, when you see California go off the charts on moisture. And so that's one factor that we were looking at. I'll go back to that here in just a second of why all those maps are important. The Pacific Ocean, though, seems to be, it's where all of our weather comes from. So the influences here on how the jet stream reacts to our west really affects the downstream impact of the jet stream as well. We had a lot of typhoons last year in the Pacific Ocean, the Western Pacific, and several super typhoons. This year already, they're off to the busiest start in the Pacific Ocean, Western Pacific, they've had in several years. We'll see how it plays out. Meanwhile, the Atlantic last year was below average on activity. Very little, if anything. I mean, we started off right off the bat with Hurricane Arthur. That was the first storm we had in June. Yes, we've had our first subtropical name, Ana, right now, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a busy season. I think Ana right now, to be honest with you, is more of an anomaly that is happening, more so a sign of how the hurricane season will play out, because the official hurricane season forecast is for it to be quite a bit below normal for the Atlantic season. But usually when you get the Pacific being very active, the Atlantic kind of balances out on the lesser active side of things. All right, so that is one sign I'm seeing. The fact that we're already starting off with a very similar typhoon potential in the Western Pacific, I'm monitoring that. The El Nino took a while to get going last year. We were kind of in neutral. Then since about February, March, we've been crossing over to El Nino status now. And the models kind of vary as we head into winter, which is right in here. They still keep us above the zero line. So a lot of the models still say that El Nino will try to hold on all the way through at least the fall and perhaps winter. Right now, officially, NOAA is saying that we have a 60% chance to see El Nino hold on all the way through November, the way it's looking. And we got to keep an eye on that because that will impact the ocean temperatures. We're seeing some warming taking place. Australia should be an El Nino phase, should have warmer temperatures than this northern side here. They don't have them yet. So we'll see if that flips around for those guys. We'll keep an eye on that because that down the road here can affect things in the other hemisphere. But notice already some cooler water showing up. It's got that horseshoe shape of warming that has taken place here across Alaska all the way down into Mexico. When you see that horseshoe shape, that is a sign that we call more of a Moduku type of El Nino. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. And I'm sorry the map is not placed right. I did this in a hurry. For a typical El Nino, you have that cooling. We saw that. And you have the strong warming right in here. And that would lead to very heavy rain across portions of California. And overall, it can lead to cooler weather and dry weather sometimes here in the east. The Moduku, though, and I wish it was not cut off. It's more, if you look carefully, it is more of a horseshoe shape that takes place with the ocean temperatures. And we were seeing that show up here in recent scans. So here's the way things are looking as of right now. Just looking at those variables only. I'll look at more data over the summer when it comes to some spots and all that activity. But right now, based on ocean temperature profiles, we are setting ourselves up again for a colder than normal winter in the eastern half of the country, much below in that hashed area. I think it's going to be centered over the Great Lakes and Midwest, maybe here in the Ohio Valley, but that's kind of iffy right now because my biggest debate I'm having is the El Nino potential, which is going to be a little stronger this winter than last year, which means a subtropical jet could be very active. That can keep you from getting into the very cold fluxes of the brutal cold air masses that could take place. That's why I'm not going to push it much further south than that. Also, having said that, it does look to be above normal snowfall potential across most of the eastern half of the country. I do think there's going to be more of a favoritism here that'll take place across the Great Lakes, potentially as we head into this winter, and maybe the Appalachians. I just don't know how much further south I'll take it. I may have to make it arc like this, so there could be some southern winter storms here if we get that subtropical jet to be very active and that polar jet dives down like it did last year. We could be setting ourselves up from southern snowstorms, some big snows potentially in Great Lakes, maybe in the Northeast once again. The big iffy area is going to be right here in Kentucky and Tennessee. And with snow forecasting, we're not going to know until the week that a winter storm is on the map. And even then, that's a struggle. So this is just a general idea here of what could potentially happen for eastern half of the country. So I'll stress again, we are not forecasting heavy snow this winter. I will say that right now the trends are there for a repeat of the past two winters. I know I took 9 minutes to say that, but that's what it looks like. A repeat. The question is, how severe will it be, and will it be December, January, or February? I will say at this point, with the similar indicators we're getting, I think it's going to be delayed again. We may get some warning shots in November, December where it looks cold, like it's going to get bad, I think December will warm up, but then January, late January and February, again, I think that is going to be the core of winter and perhaps all the way into March. We've seen that 2 years in a row, and I don't see any major changes to that for this upcoming winter. All right. That's it, guys. That's it for now. We'll see how it plays out later. I'll be live on Periscope after this gets on online here if you have any questions for me, all right? All right. But